Well, good morning and happy Wednesday. We are obviously back from Hotlanta. We were down there visiting Sherry's family, and we're back now. So this is Tuesday. We got back yesterday afternoon. And today we move into Hebrews chapter 4. We finished Hebrews chapter 3 yesterday. It's a chapter that ultimately speaks about God, or about Jesus being better than Moses, the gospel being better than the law. And I looked at different passages in Hebrews 3, arguing, first of all, the importance of having a tenacious faith, of seeking after God, of disciplining ourselves, of working out our salvation. And I did all of this against the backdrop of suggesting that we are saved by the grace of God. We are sanctified. It's ultimately also a work of God's grace. So in terms of flowers, I favor tulip over daisy, but I would be guilty of clergy malpractice if I did anything to take away the punch of the text, which is telling us that we need to be disciplined to pursue Christ, that we need to work out our salvation. We can't be passive in this process. And then the second thing that I looked at here, was the idea of God's word, that it's alive, that it's dynamic, that God is written to us, that God is speaking to us, and he does so principally through the Bible. So today we move on in Hebrews chapter 4, and now we get a sort of a positive statement of an idea that was negatively expressed in Hebrews chapter 3. So in Hebrews 3, we're told that we're not to fall into unbelief. In Hebrews 4, we get invited into the rest of God. So let me read Hebrews 4:1. Therefore, let us fear lest, while a promise remains of entering his rest, any one of you should seem to have come short of it. Therefore, let us fear, this would be fear God, beginning of wisdom. Let us be serious, let us be diligent, let's be thoughtful. Entering into his rest. While a promise remains of entering into his rest, any one of you should seem to have come up short of it. We don't want that to happen. So, rest is the key word here. It's going to occur 11 times in Hebrews chapter 4. And we need to understand what it means. And so let me just mention two definitions or understandings of it today, and we'll take up a third tomorrow. So the first is just, physical relaxing, which is something the Jews didn't get to do when they were slaves. They were not part of a strong labor union. They didn't have a good benefits package, so they were always laboring. And then it's something they didn't get to do when they were in the desert for 40 years, right? They're going to be wandering around in the desert, and that's a difficult place to survive. I have a friend who has done reconciliation work around the globe, but principally in the Middle East. And one of the things that he did starting 30 years ago, he continues to do this, but he would take 15 Israelis and 15 Palestinians out into the desert. Sometimes they were both teachers, sometimes they were doctors, sometimes they were government officials, but he would get 15 Israelis who were doing manufacturing, and then he'd have 15 Palestinians who were doing the similar kind of job. And he'd take them out into the desert for a week. And he said, and they had 15 camels. And he said, first of all, they were more scared of the camels than they were of each other. And secondly, they had to cooperate or they would die. He said it was difficult to even get people to agree to come out and pick them up after a week, right? To drop them off and then come back and pick them up after a week, because they said, well, you'll be dead, not going to have any part to do with this, because you cannot survive in the desert for a week. It's very difficult. So they would, while they were out in the desert, that would be a very challenging existence. And then they didn't have physical rest when they were entering the Promised Land, which is what we have been looking at at Christ Church, what we've been looking at in this Reset series out of the book of Joshua. Because they've got all kinds of challenges, enemies. They've got all kinds of things they've got to attend to initially. So this idea of physical rest is really a gift to them, to the Jews. They would understand it that way. There's also a deeper sense of rest. There is a rest of our soul. Augustine said, a century and a half ago, "O Lord, you made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in thee. And this kind of rest is just a contentedness. It's downtime because we have spiritual peace. This is not the kind of rest that we can get from a nap. This is a settled soul. And Psalm 62 says, my soul finds rest in God alone. So I am praying rest for you today, restoration of your soul. For you today, we'll pick up another form of rest tomorrow. Have a good day.